All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So in this one, I wanted to really talk a little bit about the Dalvin Cook situation, right? This is something that has been a pretty big topic of discussion really since yesterday's press conference with Robert Saleh, where he pretty much said Breece Hall is no longer on a pitch count, right? They're not going to be monitoring the snaps and kind of hitting these game plans, these offensive game plans with this, analytical approach of, okay, hold on a second, we need to share snaps. We have Dalvin Cook, we have Michael Carter, we have Breece Hall coming back from the knee. It just seems like as of right now, again, according to Saleh, we are going to move forward and Hall is going to be the RB1 with no restraints on him. But with that said, there has been a lot of fans talking about what the future holds for Dalvin Cook. Obviously, this season, he has not been all that effective. He hasn't looked super explosive. He hasn't really been able to impact the game whatsoever. Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but the one time when I think about Dalvin Cook in the Jet uniform, I think of the fumble against Dallas. We look at his stats on the season. He only has 74 rushing yards total in 30 attempts, and he also has 8 receptions, no touchdowns. Obviously, there's not that much to talk about when it comes to Dalvin Cook, and obviously Cook was one of the best Viking running backs that I can remember. Is a Viking legend, right? The definition of consistency for that Viking squad. He comes over to the New York Jets. First off, he has a lot of teams interested. Dallas, New England, Buffalo, Miami, New York, obviously, Denver. And the Jets land him, and Joe Douglas pays him a ton of money, right? Especially for the time that Cook came into the building, right? It wasn't like the first week or first couple of days of free agency. JD paid him a ton. So you're thinking, okay, we have essentially 2 running back ones. When Breece Hall comes back and is fully ready to go, Dalvin will take that back seat. But until then, we can really feed Dalvin the football in the running game and not really miss a beat. The problem is there has been a bunch of issues surrounding this Jets offense, whether you want to talk about, again, excluding the Chiefs game, right? So weeks 1 through 3, we can talk about Hackett's play calling. We can talk about the offensive line just not really having much production in either pass protection or run blocking. We can talk about there not really being much of a threat from the quarterback position. So if you're DC, if you're linebackers, if you're safeties playing against this Jets offense, is there a real threat that they're going to push the ball down the field? Is there really a threat that they're going to, take the top off the defense or, even attack the intermediate parts of the field? Not really. So we're seeing a lot of loaded boxes and we're going up against, week after week after week, pretty smart defensive coordinators, defensive minds. Sean McDermott week 1, Dan Quinn week 2, Bill Belichick week 3, again, excluding the Chiefs game. And also something to stack on top of that, the defenses overall, like personnel, production standpoints, these are some of the best in football. That's not an over-exaggeration. These defenses that the Jets have played so far are literally some of the best. So in other words, there's been a lot working against Dalvin Cook as opposed to in favor of Dalvin Cook. Again, a myriad of different issues: quarterback, play calling, O-line, defenses, defensive coordinators, defensive philosophies, defensive play calls. So there's been a lot of fans talking about, okay, well, Dalvin's getting paid a ton of money. He's not really impacting the game whatsoever. We already have a clearly better option in Breece Hall. And now that the pitch count is off, essentially, and we still have 2 other young backs in Izzy Abanikanda and Michael Carter, what's really the role of Dalvin Cook here? Should he get traded? I've seen a couple of suggestions saying that the Jets should just cut him. And this is kind of my take on it. First of all, the Jets have been hit with injuries like no other, right? I feel like every single year, the injuries come into play at multiple positions: offense, defense, special teams even. It's been absolutely brutal. For once, I feel like we are looking at multiple positions on this team, and I feel good about the depth. And by the way, the same argument could be made with Carl Lawson at D end. Number 2, I think it doesn't really benefit Joe Douglas to move on from a Dalvin Cook. I think, we paid him what we paid him, which was a lot of money. I think when you make a rash decision like this after 4 games. You know, it's one thing if we had a Chase Claypool situation where he's being asked to stay home, he's a locker room cancer, whatever the case may be, he's a distraction from the team, but it doesn't really seem like Dalvin is that whatsoever. He seems totally fine, totally normal. It's just he's not really racking up the production. So 4 weeks into the season, for me at least, if I was Joe Douglas, I'm not looking to move Dalvin Cook. I'm not looking to release him or, trade him at this point. I really don't know. I can't think of a team out there that would be willing to give up something of quality value to go out and trade for Cook at this point in time. Trade deadline may be a different story. But as of right now, 4 weeks into the season, and also understanding that he hasn't really had a lot of success up front with the line, or a lot of, opportunities, understanding the good defenses, how the defenses are playing. Zach Wilson has been the quarterback, not really ultra productive. I think I'm going to roll the dice with Dalvin Cook. Now, in 4 weeks, I'm going to revisit it. And quite frankly, in 4 weeks, if the trade deadline rolls around, and let's just say that the season does not go the way the Jets are hoping, we have 1 or 2 wins by week 8. Yeah, I don't care how good Dalvin Cook looks. I'm looking to move him. He's a veteran on an expiring contract at a position where we have multiple young guys on the roster. But as of right now, when the Jets are 1-3, 2 games below 500, and keep in mind, the top dogs in the AFC, are having their fair share of struggles too. We look at what the Bengals are going through, what the Steelers are going through, what New England is going through. There's a lot of teams, what the Raiders are going through, Denver, right? There's a lot of squads out there that had really, really high expectations for the season. Or I shouldn't necessarily say really high for every team out there, but, it wouldn't have been, crazy to say, oh, the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's a team that could win their division. Right? The Cincinnati Bengals, that's a team that could win their division, right? There's a lot of teams out there that aren't tanking, they aren't rebuilding, they're win now. They're pushing for the playoffs. And we have multiple squads in the AFC that are stumbling out of the gate, dealing with their own issues. So again, we're 1-3 right now. To me, we have a winnable game this Sunday against Denver. And by the way, the defensive line production has not been there in the slightest for the Broncos. So maybe this is the game that Dalvin Cook pops off on. You never really know. So again, to recap, I love the depth, number 1. Number 2, I really don't understand what Joe Douglas would gain, something positive. What's the net positive for Douglas here to get rid of Cook unless somebody's, calling the Jets off the hook, saying, hey, we'll give you our 3rd round pick, our 4th round pick for Dalvin Cook. I highly, highly doubt that is actually happening right now. That's kind of my stance on it. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. And as always, go Jets.